Hi guys, this is Tablet-News.com and I'm here with the Sony Xperia Z2 for a full detailed review. We've not so long ago reviewed the Sony Xperia Z1 and the Z1 Compact, and now the Z2 has arrived for a full and detailed review. This is the 2014 Sony flagship phone. It's a waterproof device, also a camera phone, as shown by this camera here. It was unveiled at Mobile World Congress 2014 and the price tag is about 600 euros in Europe. This model comes about half a year after the Xperia Z1, so it's rushed if you want. Usually you let 1 year to pass between flagships, and this one has arrived early. Okay, so as far as the design is concerned, this model measures 8.2 millimeters in thickness. It's only a hair thinner, or about a hair thinner than the Xperia Z1. It's a metaphor, of course. It's about 0.3 millimeters thinner. It weighs 163 grams and it has a 5.2 inch display this time. It has the same general design format as the predecessor, the Xperia Z1 and the Xperia Z. It's called Omni Balance, and as usual it's a fingerprint and grease magnet, as you can see for yourself. Don't bother wiping it, the fingerprints and the grease will appear again. It's a bit lighter than the Z1. It's also 18 grams heavier than the Galaxy S5. It's waterproof, it's dustproof, and we have lids that cover up the ports in order to secure the waterproof status of the device. That's one lid, and we got another one here. They're much easier to remove than the previous devices. It's a rectangular format handset. We have a glass front and a glass back. We also have aluminum band edges, as far as I can tell. This model can withstand submersion in water for about 1.5 meters in depth and up to 30 minutes. You can also take pictures underwater, and I have to say that this model has a slightly slimmer screen bezel compared to the predecessor, only slightly smaller this bezel of the screen. Other things worth mentioning is that you get better grip, believe it or not. Even though it's a glossy shiny phone, the grip is better because of the texture of the sides. As you can see, it has been changed a bit and it's easier to grip. Okay, now at the top we have the audio jack and what seems to be a microphone. At the bottom, I'm guessing these three are microphone holes. I have to get back to you on that. I suppose there are 3 microphone holes. I looked it up on the web. There was no info, so I'm going to assume it's all microphones, plus this lanyard hole in the corner. On the right side we have the trademark on-off button, metallic button, volume buttons, camera button, and the microSD card slot covered up by a lid. Okay, I have to say that the buttons feedback has improved. The volume buttons are now easier to push, the on-off button as well, and the camera button finally makes sense when you press it. On the left side we have a big flap. This big flap covers up the micro USB port and micro SIM card slot right here. Next to them we have some pins for the dock right here, and that's about everything on the left side. Now at the back we find the back camera, we find the flash, that's pretty much it. Up front we have the notification LED hidden right here in the top speaker. Finally, Sony has decided to include dual stereo speakers. We have one here at the top and one here at the bottom, so stereo speakers all the way. Got a front camera, got some sensors here, and that's about everything that's needed to be said about design. As I said, this model is 0.3 millimeters thinner than the Xperia Z1, and as far as I can see, Sony has adopted the same design pattern for about 3 years in a row. Xperia Z, Xperia Z1, Xperia Z2 and Xperia Z1 Compact. However, each time they've improved the design a little bit, but the general format stays the same and people may feel bored over time. Also, this is the sort of angular design that will tend to hurt your palms. Imagine having a conversation that lasts half an hour. These straight edges will cut right into your palm and you'll have signs left on your hand, which is not cool. So in the long run, your palm will be hurt by these rectangular edges. Still, we have premium materials, we have metal, we have glass, so at least that's good. Okay, now to the hardware. What we've got here is triluminous IPS LCD screen with a diagonal of 5.2 inches. It's also a Full HD screen, and the CPU is a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 clocked at 2.3 GHz, and these are Crite 400 cores. The GPU is Adreno 330. The RAM quantity is 3 gigabytes, so it's more than the Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8. There's a microSD card slot on the side that will offer you up to 128 gigabytes of space extra from the internal storage. The internal storage is 16 gigabytes and you only get 12 gigabytes free. The back hosts a 20.7 megapixel camera with about 1/2 of an inch sensor, about that, an f2.0 lens and the ability to do 4K video. At the front there is a 2 megapixel shooter right here, and on the connectivity side you got the usual NFC, HSPA+, there's LTE on board, also there's Bluetooth 4.0, MHL, DLNA, Miracast, Wi-Fi Direct, GPS, Wi-Fi dual band and FM radio. Stereo speakers, as I said, at the top and the bottom, and in the section called and others we have accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity sensor and compass. Now I'm going to address the battery. Okay, let's go to the folders, screenshots. Okay, so what we're dealing with here is a lithium-ion 3200 mAh battery. On paper it provides 740 hours of standby or 120 hours of music. Our test usually involves HD video playback with Wi-Fi on and brightness of 50%. We did that and we achieved 11 hours and 3 minutes of continuous HD playback using the screen, the phone and everything. It beats the HTC One M8 that scores 10 hours of playback, but it's pretty much on the same level as the Galaxy S5, which coincidentally also scores 11 hours and 4 minutes. So while that one is impressive because it has a smaller capacity battery, I was expecting just a little bit more from this model. I should probably mention that once I left the house with the phone and started taking about 100 pictures and 5 videos, I lost 25% of the battery. So that's what you get if you're doing a detailed gallery of shots. Now if you want to customize your battery, don't get me wrong, 11 hours of functioning is still a good time, and I'm talking video here. I'm guessing you can reach about 1.5 days, maybe 2 of moderate usage. Okay, now in the settings area, we got a bunch of ways to manage the power. First, stamina mode. You can see here how to use the stamina. Well, the concept is like this. You can disable the Wi-Fi and mobile when the screen is off. You can restrict hardware performance, and you can actually add applications that are active in standby, applications that will get permission to function when in that standby mode. That's the stamina mode that you can activate to save juice. Then there is a low battery mode. This one allows you to deactivate some stuff when you're entering the special mode, and you can activate it when the battery is below 20% or a lower or a higher level depending on your needs. And another option is location-based Wi-Fi, so you can activate Wi-Fi automatically when in range, queue background data, and finally battery usage. You can see that I got 1 day and 7 hours of usage over the past 24 hours, or better said 48 hours. So I easily got about 2 days from the phone and then I had to charge it. Okay, so overall this is a good battery, but not exactly when compared to the Galaxy S5. It may be smaller, but its battery is also smaller and it lasts about the same. Since I mentioned other models when talking about this device, I cannot help but compare it to its predecessor, and in that area it has evolved quite a bit. The Xperia Z1 offered you about 7 hours of battery life and this one 11 hours, so the evolution is clear. By the way, it takes about 3 hours to charge the battery fully, which is kind of a lot, considering that at some point Sony bragged about how fast its Xperias were charging. Okay, now it's time to test the audio experience. For that we have the usual Walkman player, now with slight interface changes and now with stereo speakers at the top and bottom. The Walkman app, as I said, has a slight upgrade. Now you can see everything organized through a left side column, through artists, albums, song playlists and devices that you can stream to or get stream from. And this is the UI. You can look up stuff. You can activate Clear Audio Plus, throw music, download music info, create a media server, or play it with a bunch of sound effects that I'm going to detail just a bit later. So let's play a tune. Okay, so I just activated Clear Audio Plus. optimizes automatically the audio experience for the best playback possible and closest to the original recording state of the device. Then you can move on to other settings. Go to the settings area, sound effects. You can once again activate Clear Audio Plus. Go to sound enhancement, which is basically the equalizer. You can mess up those meters how you like, mess with the clear bass, and have some equalizer presets related to the genre like soul, unique, rock, pop, or whatever you dig. Then in the settings area we got surround sound, especially for the headphones, studio, club, concert hall, and clear stereo that reduces crosstalk between left and right channels, once again for the headphones. Other settings, clear phase, that will adjust the sound quality of the internal speaker. It makes the sound crisper, and X Loud, it slightly enhances the output of the speaker. Finally, this one is a new feature, S Forced Front Surround. It virtually reproduces 3D sound naturally and realistically, so I'm going to play with this one because it's new. Let's find a new song. And there is another feature, the last of them. I wish Sony would make it easier to move to the options without having to enter 1000 windows. Dynamic normalizer that basically makes all the songs have the same volume, so you don't listen to a song with a low volume and then one with a huge volume. Okay, so those are all the available options, some pretty cool ones. Most of them are the usual ones from an Xperia. I have to say that the speakers are pretty loud. To me, they're as loud as the ones from the Galaxy S5, but they're below the HTC One M8 that still blows any smartphone out of the water. I have to say that the sound is pretty clear and pretty crisp. It's totally above the experience of the Xperia Z1. And now the headphones. I find those to be pretty strange as far as the design is concerned. I'm used to strange earbuds, but these one are totally peculiar. They're quite big, so when you put them in your ears, a big part of them stands out and you may look funny, you may look goofy in the crowd. Apart from that, they're also not very comfortable because they go very deep in your ear. And well, at least they have the best bass I've ever heard on a mobile phone headphone, and also loud volume and excellent noise isolation. So overall good audio from the speakers, from the headphones. The headphones beat the AirPods from Apple, the headphones from Samsung, and these speakers are on par with the Galaxy S5. Of course, you can also mess around with the FM radio. Here it is. FM radio requires the headphones, plugging it in, nothing has changed here. You also have a nifty visualizer, radio region, playing speaker, search for channels, track ID, post to Facebook. So those are the options available with your experience. As I said, I am very pleased by the audio experience offered by this phone. Okay, so the Tablet-News.com review of the Xperia Z2 proceeds with the screen aspect. What we got here, well, it's a 5.2-inch triluminous LCD screen, Full HD. The Xperia Z1 was poor, let's admit it. It wasn't the best TFT in the world, while the Xperia Z1 Compact was a huge upgrade, one of the brightest phones I've ever tested. The Z2 is also an upgrade. It has RGB striped pixels and very vivid colors. Let's check out a video on it. Here's a video. Vivid colors, wide view angles. Those were a huge problem on the Z1. Well, no longer, especially on the vertical. We don't have problems here, so that's good. And finally, Sony got rid of that whitish hue that covered the screen. You may remember it. Once you play with the Z1, you notice there's an extra layer of white on top of the image, which is bothersome. The screen is reasonably bright. It's good in sunlight, and we even did some tests under the microscope and such, which I'm going to look for here. Okay, so folders, download. This is what the pixels of the screen look like under a microscope. We use the microscope to get to them. And this is our lux meter. We achieved 366 lux units on white. It's below the Galaxy S5, the Xperia Z1 Compact, and HTC One M8 by about 100 lux units. However, you will not feel that difference. You will not actually notice that the screen is not as bright as the Galaxy S5 or HTC One M8 because the brightness is pretty well distributed and well offered to the user's eye. I would say it's bright enough. It's not the brightest, but bright enough to make you enjoy the movies and games you're going to play on the device. Of course, there are settings here, settings for the screen, and I'm talking about display settings. We have X-Reality for mobile that basically will enhance the quality of the images for photos and videos. I frankly don't like it very much. It tends to exaggerate with colors and hues. We have glove mode, so you interact with the screen with gloves on. Brightness and white balance. You can adjust your experience. You can adjust the white balance, the red level, green level, or blue level, or simply go back to default values. Okay, we also have sleep, smart backlight control. Well, this one keeps the screen on when you hold the device in your hand. The image pretty much sums it up. When you're holding the device, the screen is on. Once you leave it from your hand, it will sense it and the screen goes off. And then we have double tap to wake up, font size, and notification light, and those are all the options available here. The conclusion about the display, it's a big improvement compared to the Xperia Z1. It's not a big improvement compared to the Xperia Z1 Compact. It had a fantastic screen, but it does have its high points. It's still not as bright as the Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8, but it does the job it's meant to, which means offer great video and great game playback. Okay, now as far as the camera is concerned, we're dealing with a 20.7 megapixel shooter here, one that has a size of about half of an inch, and that's the sensor I'm talking about. And there is also an f2.0 lens and a 27mm equivalent focal length. We have an LED flash, we finally get 4K video capture, and this is basically the camera on the Xperia Z1 with a few upgrades. We got digital stabilization, we don't have optical image stabilization, so you have to wait for a future version to get that. One thing I must mention from the start is that the Xperia Z2 can capture more light than any other Android phone I've tested recently, including the HTC One M8 and the Samsung Galaxy S5, so at night it offers very good capture. Well, the user interface is pretty much the same one from the Xperia Z1 and the Z1 Compact. We have options on the left side, modes on the right side, and I have to say that you can also find the shutter here and the video recording button. And also there is a very good frame rate, as you can see in this viewfinder. It really adjusts perfectly with the real life images. And now let's check out the modes. Well, as usual, we have the Superior Auto that takes photo and videos with automatically optimized settings. It does very well at detecting the situation you're in, if it's a document, if it's night, if it's a picture that needs backlight. So with minimal customization you get what you want. A few options included here, but those are the basic ones that we'll talk about later. If you don't like the Superior Auto mode, you can switch to manual with a ton of customization options. Those include scenes, but in order to access scenes I have to decrease the resolution, so I have to go to 8 megapixels and then I can get all the options I want. So we got scene selection here with let's suppose there's about a dozen of settings. I haven't counted them, but it's a ton of scene selection. We got soft skin, soft snap, night portrait, night scene, even something for pets, gourmet, beach, party, sports, and documents. So a ton of scenes to play with. And following that, we also have options like exposure right here, white balance obviously included, flash with many options, even for a modern camera phone, auto, fill flash, red eye reduction, off, and flashlight. And after that, there is the resolution. The maximum one is 5248 over 3936 pixels, which is the 20.7 megapixel option in 4:3 aspect ratio. You can go to 16:9 in a 15.5 megapixel option, and then there's the basic one, the most shareable picture, with an 8 megapixel option. By the way, you can only activate HDR for this option. If you go to 50 megapixel or 20, you cannot activate HDR, and other options include self-timer, smile shutter, focus mode with options like single autofocus, multi, face detection, touch focus, and object tracking. And then comes the ISO. The ISO is either auto or goes up to 3200, pretty impressive. Then comes the metering, that includes center, average, and spot. Image stabilizer, once again digital image stabilizer, not optical. and these are basically all the options available here, plus some options related to the capture, geotagging, touch capture, and the use of volume keys to zoom because the screen is too sensitive to use it for zooming. Okay, if you go into the video area, you also have some special options for the video capture, manual options. Once again, a lot of scenes, white balance and exposure, flash options, and not the front camera. Let's see the other. We got full HD 30 frames per second video capture or 60 frames per second video capture, or you can go HD. There's also yet again self timer, smile shutter, focus mode with a few options, HDR video, metering, center average or spot, steady shot, microphone and preview, plus the options you saw before. Okay, so it's a good thing that we have HDR video, and this is the touch zoom. That's what I was talking about. It's very sensitive, so you'd better use the volume buttons. I complained about the sensitivity of the touch zoom on the Xperia Z1 and the Z1 Compact, and this problem has not been solved. So yet again, you should use the volume buttons, but they're quite small. So okay, let's go to the other modes. We're done with Superior and manual. We got 4K video, pretty much speaks for itself. You can record the video in the 4K resolution. It looks pretty impressive. I'll come back to that later. We got time shift video. Well, this one allows you to make one part of a video slow down. So basically you create a slow motion video like the ones on the iPhone 5S, the ones in 120 frames per second. So let me show you a bit of a demo. It's going to be pretty unimpressive, so don't expect anything much. My fingers going here in the frame for a few seconds, and then I stop the video and I choose what part of the video I would like to slow down.
Impressive, so don't expect it.
Now you can see the fingers slowing down, and I can actually go back to the normal speed or select the slow motion for the entire duration of the video. The voice also slows down. I sound like Chewbacca, I know, but that's pretty funky, and that's the result you get. Part of the video is in normal speed, part of the video is in slow motion. That's what this feature does. That's why it shows a hummingbird, because that's the ideal thing to play with this way. Then we got background defocus. The thing goes like this. So you can select the resolution. Imagine that you see this castle and behind it there is something else, a background. I take the picture, I blur the background with several options of blur, and let's try something like this. It will probably not let me blur the background, but I did take some shots. You can change focus, you can choose the pattern of blur, and I have to say that this defocus option is actually better than one of the Galaxy S5 that didn't exactly work for me. So let me actually show you what's happening here, because I don't have anything to show you right now. I'm going to resort to the gallery, and a huge amount of pictures here. This is what the feature does. So I saw a pole on the street, I took the picture, and as you can see the background is blurred, but not totally. And I took another picture like this. This is the regular poster, and this is the poster with blur. You can blur horizontally, vertically, and there are several other options to increase the quantity of blur. And that's what background defocus is all about. Once again, the selective focus that does the same thing on a Galaxy S5 didn't work for me, while this one does, so that's an advantage. Then we got the already famous AR effect. I saw that in action on the Xperia Z1 and the Z1 Compact. I'm not impressed anymore. This is what it does. It puts dinosaurs or all sorts of decorations ahead of you, so you can take a funky picture with a dinosaur next to your friend. Then we got creative effects. This is the area where you get a bunch of filters, options, nostalgic, miniature, motion trail, mosaic, motion effects, and each of them has a bunch of sub options. This one has 3 sub options. And we got hue, saturation, yet again a bunch of sub options available here to play with. Keep getting back to the pictures. And finally brightness and contrast. You can also mess around with those as well. Okay, now back to the modes. This one was the creative effect. Then we have Vine, Info Eye. Well, Info Eye is basically yet another augmented reality app. We have landmarks, barcodes, QR codes, wines, books, business cards and text. You can scan them, get more info from them, or extract from them the exact purpose of the content. There's time shift burst available here as well. You can take dozens of pictures in one go, about 60 of them or so, and you can choose the perfect one that suits your needs. We have social life, so you can share stuff straight to Facebook. You can share a video while filming it straight to Facebook and your friends. Then there's Sweep Panorama that pretty much speaks for itself. And then I installed two apps, Motion Graph for Xperia. You can create a cinematic photo by animating part of a captured image, so a GIF basically. And Motion Shot, you can express moving objects in a single image or animation by creating a pattern of their movement. You can also add more apps. This is a trend. The Galaxy S5 also has a similar feature. And those are basically all the modes you can play with on this device. And since I showed those features earlier, I feel compelled to show you what they can do. So those two, Motion Gram and Motion Shot, I put them in action. And let's see what came up. Should be here somewhere. Okay, so here they are. Finally, those are the options that you'll have available after taking the shot. You can see the traces left by the water while they're flying from the fountain, and you can see the editing option from the Motion Graph and the other option. And this is what one of them does. One is Motion Graph, one is Motion Shot, and this is a GIF with parts of the water standing still and parts of the water moving, which is exactly what you will choose. You will swipe the screen to select what remains motionless and what remains moving. Okay, now I'm actually going to take a picture. I keep playing with this camera. I'm going to rely on superior auto, or better not. Let's go to the big league, take a 20 megapixel shot of the castle, and enjoy all the detailed goodness of this shot. Okay, so here's the castle here. I'm expecting a very nice level of detail, which we do have. 20.7 megapixel shots, a lot of detail, and there's no noise to face here, so pretty impressive. This is one of the best cameras on an Android phone I've tested so far. I have to say this is a 20.7 megapixel camera, if I didn't say that before. Okay, so time to get rid of the castle, at least for now, and let's go to the gallery so we can analyze the pictures I've taken using this camera. I've taken about 200 of them. I actually played with the camera a lot, and what I have to say from the start is that I took the pictures on a cloudy day, and that I feel the evolution is huge compared to the Xperia Z1. We have vivid colors, we have realistic colors, excellent exposure. You already saw the defocus option working well. Once again, brilliant colors, but still realistic. This is a panorama. I was expecting it to be a bit more wide, to catch more area in it, but this one does just fine. Lots of detail. Usually Superior Auto does a fine job at capturing what you want. This is a pretty nice macro with a good level of detail for this flower. And I have another one. I have a small toy here. So you can see it like this here and like this in a close-up. Yet again, very much detail. You can even go and see the texture of the paint in the toy's eyes. Once again, realistic colors and good brightness. I also played with some effects. You'll see them a bit later. Here they are. I applied basically all the effects offered by the camera app, like mirror, all sorts of pixelization, vintage and fisheye, kaleidoscope and all that. Okay, and after seeing effects, macro, and we even played with some dinosaurs if I remember well. Here they are, applied in the middle of the street, pretty funky. I also took indoor shots. The level of detail is excellent, and the indoor shots were taken inside the mall, so the brightness was pretty good. It's a pair of Google glasses, and there's a sort of blue and green lighting here, but the camera wasn't panicked by it. So these are indoor shots, remember that, and they still look pretty mighty fine. By the way, they were taken with Superior Auto because I was in a hurry, and still they came out nice. and the details were just fine. Okay, other thing worth mentioning is that once the indoor shots are gone, we skip to the night area. We have some fantastic night shots. This is a motorcycle, and this is a motorcycle with the full flash on. Picture taken at about 1 AM at night, and still the level of detail is impressive and the picture is crisp. As usual, we have a yellowish hue. However, unlike in the case of the HTC One M8 and the Galaxy S5, that yellowish hue is diminished in the case of this phone, and you can actually see the colors of the things surrounding you, which is very, very impressive. Good colors, good level of detail, and the best pictures I've ever taken at night are this one, pictures of these flowers. Keep in mind it's 1 AM at night, and still you can take those pictures using the flash and the potent camera on the Xperia Z2. I'm also going to show you a night vid, since we cannot do without. At first glance it's not very impressive, but if you check out the night vids taken with the Galaxy S5 and HTC One M8, you'll be totally impressed. It's a bit brighter and clearer and cleaner than those videos, and the demo is this one. The focus can be lost a bit, but the image is much clearer, and it's clear that this camera will let the light pass in a bigger quantity than the Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8. It's almost comparable to the quality of the picture taking and video taking of the Nokia Lumia 1020 at night, and no, I'm not exaggerating. Now I want to show you a 4K video. Of course the screen will not do it justice. This is a 4K video taken with the handset. So let's start from the beginning. Windy day. The very feeble zoom will come into action, the touch zoom. I also have a fantastic 60 frames per second video. I say fantastic because it looks incredibly realistic. I'm guessing it's this one here. This is a 60 frames per second video. It has that special so to say immersion. You actually feel like you're there, you're taking part in the action. Full HD, 60 frames per second, very realistic. We also played with some slow motion vids, since we had the option to. Let's see which ones, maybe this one. Is the option I've shown you before, regular water, and then slow motion kicks in, and then it reverts to the normal mode. Okay, so you probably want to see a normal video after 4K, after slow motion and all that. This is a normal video. Let it go from the start. Very nice colors. I did this while moving to show you that the stabilization is actually pretty good. So I'm moving, taking a video, and still no problem with the focus, and we're not losing details. Good focus, good detail in zoom, good colors, good exposure. So overall the camera is better than the one of the Xperia Z1, better than the one of the HTC One M8, and better of the Galaxy S5. It's dangerously close to a pure view. It can even beat some of the 20 megapixel pure views and become the equal of other models. You can also do photo editing. So the conclusion is, this is the best Android camera phone that money can buy in 2014. And if you want to edit a picture, you just have to press this button here, and no less than 4 options will appear. We got Photo Editor, Photos, Pixelart Express, and Sketch. I've shown you all of them in previous reviews. Photo Edit is the basic one, offered by Sony, with a ton of filters to play with, frames, crops, rotate, and contrast, shadows, vignette, and all that. Options you already know, and the other apps offer pretty much the same thing. Okay, you can also edit video, but it's a basic level of editing, don't expect anything fancy. So let's see the option. This is it. You can trim, adjust the speed, and then you can redo or revert. That's all the video editing you need on this device. This is an excellent camera and the best Android cam in 2014. It even beats the Galaxy S5 that I praised not so long ago. Back to the album, back to the folders. By the way, check out the album application. It has been upgraded, if I'm not mistaken, with this interesting mode of organization, including some online stuff, Facebook, Picasa, Flickr, places, devices, and obviously folders. So I said it before, let's check out the temperature. We reached 41.5 degrees Celsius on this handset after a session of playing Riptide GP2 and Asphalt 8 for 15 minutes. It's a bit overheating, but much less than the Xperia Z1 that reached 46 degrees Celsius. So the overheating problem is still here, but only slightly since the temperature is now lower. I'm going to talk benchmarks now, and I have decided to compare the Xperia Z2 with the HTC One M8 and the Samsung Galaxy S5, the other big shot flagships from the market. Now let me access the screenshot area and the comparison may begin. Okay, so Xperia Z2 versus HTC One M8 and Galaxy S5. The Z2 scores 17,500 points and it gets beaten by the HTC One M8 with 24,000 points and by the Galaxy S5 with 22,000 points. In the Antutu benchmark, we scored 33,000 points. Once again, HTC One M8 beat us with 34,000 points, 567, and the Galaxy S5, 34 points, 712. So beaten twice so far. In Nanomark, 59.8 frames per second. This is where we beat the HTC One M8. It reached 59.3 frames per second, and we got beaten by the Galaxy S5 with 60.1 frames per second. Yet another beat down here. The lowest score of the three goes to the Xperia Z2 with 1,602 points, while the HTC One M8 had 1,700 and the Galaxy S5 1,645. A big score here, 3D Mark in the test that's called iStorm Unlimited, 18,358. We beat the HTC One M8 by about 1,000 points, and we got beaten by the S5 by a very narrow margin, which is about 300 points. Next up, I'm going to skip a few. So BrowserMark 2.0, we scored a modest score, 2,884, got beaten yet again by the Galaxy S5 by about 400 points, but at least we beat the HTC One M8 by about 200 points. Now getting back to what we missed before, which is Geekbench 3. Here we scored 941 in the single core test. We beat the Galaxy S5 surprisingly. We got beaten by the HTC One M8 by about 30 points. And in a multi-core, we scored 2,700, got beaten by the HTC One M8 with 2,900, and we beat the Galaxy S5 again with about 200 points difference. Gfx Benchmark is also here, and in the off-screen 1080p test, we achieved 27.4 frames per second, the exact same score of the Galaxy S5, but lower than the 28 frames per second of the HTC One M8. The connectivity speed is actually pretty good, 22, almost 23 mega per second in download, 23 in upload. The HTC One M8 does 20 and 20, so we beat it, while the Galaxy S5 does 23 and 24, so it beat us by a narrow margin. Finally, SunSpider, the higher the score, the lower the rating, so 1,000 points is very disappointing because the Galaxy S5 has 400 points and it has almost double our score, the lower the better. So drawing some conclusions from all of these benchmarks, the Xperia Z2 is below the performance of the HTC One M8 and especially the Galaxy S5 that beats it in about 90% of the benchmarks, but you cannot actually feel that. The phone is still pretty snappy, it runs all the new games without problems, it doesn't suffer from lag, but the benchmarks were not that great compared to other flagships. Now as far as the web browser is concerned, well, it's also not very fast, and you saw before that SunSpider and BrowserMark didn't offer us great scores. So let's actually access Tablet News. The loading time is not the best in the world, but at least the website is seen in a good way thanks to this crisp screen. Let's turn it in landscape as well. Fluid scrolling and fluid pinch to zoom. And that's all the Chrome experience you're going to get. There is no standard web browser here, only Chrome. And this is the virtual keyboard you get on this device, quite comfy, quite well spaced. And that's, as I said, all the browsing you need. Next up, we got the phone calling area. We have a special noise cancelling technology and the sound is very, very crisp. We even have some special settings that I'm going to show you. So, call settings, there's a lot of stuff to play with here. We have voicemail, we have an answering machine, and we have hearing aid compatibility, call forwarding, those are basic, and microphone noise suppression that reduces background noise. We also have an equalizer with 3 options: normal, bright and smooth, speaker voice enhancement to provide a richer voice, and slow talk, so you can slow down the speech of persons that like to speak just like me, maybe too fast. Honestly speaking, I didn't exactly feel those options when talking to people. Even if they were enabled, I only felt I was having a very okay conversation with very good performance and very crisp audio, but not something out of the ordinary. As far as the OS goes, we got Android 4.4.2, which is KitKat, with the usual Sony user interface. We got some virtual buttons here. We got the usual collection of widgets from Sony. That sleek UI that's also to be found on PlayStations, so it feels right at home. A bunch of wallpapers, themes to play with, the area where you find the notifications and quick settings. So the interface hasn't changed very much over the past 2 years or so. It has been refined, but at its core it's exactly the same as 2, maybe 3 years ago, which is not a pretty big compliment. Now we're going into the settings area, and here we find options like Xperia connectivity with one-touch setup, throw settings, screen mirroring, and even DualShock 3 wireless controller. So if you have a PS3 and a joystick like that, you can connect it to the device. We also have special sound options like high-resolution audio via USB. You can play high-resolution audio using USB, DAC amp, and phone ringtone, dial pad touch tones, sound effects, and audio accessories, and all that. If you press the multitask button, you'll see the apps that you can close with a swipe. You can close them all by pressing the button, and you can see some floating windows. This is what they do. They're an extra layer of multitasking. So you have a timer and a calculator, you play with them and you want more. You also want the browser in a smaller form, and you can move them on the screen however you like and use them at the same time in multitasking. Plus, we have a bigger list of these floating apps available right here, with even more to add if you want to. If you swipe up, you usually get Google Now, but this time you also get an extra. You get what's new, the latest apps, games, and recommendations for your device. Okay, and now it's time to check out the pre-installed applications on this device to see if we have bloatware or if we have useful stuff. I have to warn you, there's a ton of apps installed here, and there's a ton of Vodafone apps which I'm not going to cover because this is one version of the phone and your version of the phone may not have these Vodafone apps. So first of all, let me get the usual out of the way. We got Walkman, Album, and Movies, which are the basic Sony apps that you already saw. We got What's New, which you saw earlier, and then we got Sony Select that you saw on the Xperia Z1 and the Z1 Compact. It's basically a collection of the best games and apps recommended for your device. Facebook and Social Life. Social Life is a Flipboard alternative. It gives you feeds with news. From what I know, you can also insert here Twitter and Facebook. I haven't, I don't like it. I prefer Flipboard. We got YouTube, obviously, a calendar, looking pretty fine, and also showing me the weather. That's pretty cool. You can see that it's going to rain on Monday. And setting contacts, some tools, calculator and backup, Google Maps. Obviously looking hot on the 5.2-inch screen. There will come a day when there will be no artifacts on a mobile phone, but we have a long time to wait till that happens. Video Unlimited, that's not working in my country. Track ID, which is basically the ancestor of Shazam. It has been around much longer and it hasn't been refined that much, but it's very minimalistic and people may love it for what it is. Smart Connect, if you feel the need to connect to other gadgets and accessories. And support Gmail, Google+, Photos and all that. Play Suite, Books, Newsstand. We have a PlayStation apps, so you have a PlayStation Network account. You can sign in, see what your friends are doing, check out your trophies, go to the store, and even connect to a PS4. There's a special option for that. We have Amazon Kindle, Amazon MP3, Track ID TV, yet again not working in my country, Vine, Play Games, some more Vodafone apps, Office Suite, if you want to do some productivity related stuff. Open up Excel files, Word files and all that. We have TripAdvisor, Amazon, Xperia Lounge, a file commander, pretty basic. And the Garmin navigation that has been failing to connect to the server for downloads. I have been trying it for hours and it simply wouldn't download the whole package up until now. Well, now it's doing it. We've known Garmin for years, and once you download all of this, you can get a decent navigation solution to play with on your device. Of course, we only have a trial. I'm guessing you have to pay the big bucks if you want to actually activate it. Let's go to the continuation of the app list. As you can see, there's a lot of bloatware, or let's be polite and say apps. We have eBay, we have Sketch. So if you feel the need to doodle around, you can start attaching text, a mustache, stickers, eyes, editing pictures and all that. Thanks to the Sketch app, we have Pixlr Express, and PlayStation Mobile rounds out the list. For some reason it requires me to use it in landscape alone, so you have to have a Sony Entertainment Network account, which once again, guess what, does not work in my country. I'll get back to Garmin a bit later. As I said, I'm familiar with this app. It's not my favorite. I would even take, let's say, I don't know, Here Maps from Nokia over it. Or even other solution. I would even take Google Maps and its guidance over this one. Okay, so these are all the apps available here, and now let's see what we can decide for the verdict of the phone. So it's time for the big pros and cons. On the pro side, we have an improved screen compared to the Xperia Z1. The phone is a bit lighter, especially since the diagonal is bigger. The battery is quite good. At 11 hours of HD continuous playback. We have good stereo speakers this time, the upper and lower part. And what else? We have very good headphones, although their design is funky. We have probably the best bass I've ever heard from a pair of mobile phone headphones. We have an exceptional camera. Yes, I did. I called it exceptional. It's better than the Galaxy S5, HTC One M8, and basically any other Android camera phone I've tested so far, and even some pure views. At night is very hard to rival this camera capture. Keep that in mind. Take some pictures at night and they'll be very hard to equal if taken with this phone. It does great video with a lot of details. It does 4K video. We have lots of voice call options. The grip has improved thanks to the texture of the sides, so it's easier to hold the phone even if it's still a bit slippery. It's a waterproof and dustproof device. You can take shots and videos under the water with it, and we have 3 GB of RAM, so the hardware has improved. On the con side, yes, we have cons. We have the same design format for about 2 or 3 years. People are getting bored by that. The same rectangular edges that will dig into your palm after half an hour of talking on the phone. We have pretty much the same user interface with minor modifications, once again for about 2 or 3 years, which is inadmissible for a modern Android device. We have low benchmarks that can be explained by poor optimization, but I have a feeling that those benchmarks could be higher because it's still a very good phone. The headphones that stick out of your ears are very unesthetic, and the screen could be just a little bit brighter. I praise the screen for being bright enough and the experience being good, but it could have been brighter. It's about 100 lux units less bright than the Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8. And there's a slight bit of overheating, but not as much as the Xperia Z1. And we have a huge amount of bloatware to take into account. Well, at least the internal storage is 12 GB out of 16. It's not as bad as other phones like the Galaxy S4. So that's pretty much it. Not very huge defects, I have to say, but a huge progress from the Xperia Z1. Let's give it some grades. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.2 out of 10 for design, a huge 9.6 out of 10 for hardware, and a 9.5 out of 10 for the operating system and the user interface. And the final grade is, drumroll, it's 9.43 out of 10 for the Sony Xperia Z2. It's the best Android camera phone that the money can buy in 2014, and those night shots really got to me. The best night capture I've seen since I've been testing phones and tablets. It's a big upgrade from the Z1, and it's a correction of all the errors that Sony did over the past years, and finally they did something right, even put stereo speakers on the device, and I'm very happy with that. So 9.43 out of 10 right here at Tablet-News.com. That's it for now. This is the review of the Xperia Z2. Bye bye.